A 1% sales tax, which was adopted to combat the recession, is due to expire. Should we adopt a wait-and-see stance or allow this tax to expire as scheduled?
Well, I'm not totally up to speed on this issue, but I think the original commitment was, of course, that it would expire. And so in light of revenues that aren't there, obviously the governor put us in a bad position, but it seemed to me that the 1% sales tax, as we said, falls unfairly on lower and middle income persons. I believe it should be allowed to expire.
Mr. Delaney, the same question.
Yeah, about 63 cents or so of every general fund dollar that Kansas spends goes to schools. We've already created, the legislature and the governor have created an enormous hole in the budget that's going to go on into the indefinite future with the income tax cut. I'm afraid that if the 1 cent sales tax is also allowed to expire, it'll compound the problem. I don't agree. I think over time, I think that the sales tax ought to be replaced with a sensible, fair income tax to make up the difference. But I think in the near term, the state can't afford to lose even more revenue than it already will.
Okay, same question, Mr. Russell.
There are a lot of people who say, who ask me a lot of times, what are the differences between myself and my opponent who's not here tonight? This is a big one. I disagree with the income tax law. I will absolutely support repealing it, putting a fair income tax system back in place, as Mike said. I am not optimistic that that will happen anytime in the next 2 years. If it doesn't happen, I will do whatever it takes to spare schools, transportation, infrastructure from further cuts, social services, healthcare from further cuts. That includes extending the 1 cent sales tax for another couple of years if necessary. I'm not a huge fan of funding operations with sales tax. It is a regressive tax. It's not my first option. My first option will be to do away with this huge income tax cut that was passed. My opponent has pledged to oppose extension of the 1 cent sales tax, period, end, because I think she made a commitment about that when she voted for it before. Like Merlin said, there were promises made. The only promise I'm making is to look at all viable options on the table to spare the schools, the highways, the infrastructure, and the services from further cuts until we can get through these next 2 years. And that may include extending the sales tax.
And Lisa, your response to this question.
Well, similarly, I have some concerns about this, and there's a difference between what should be done and what we may have to do. I mean, ideally, this sales tax increase was put in place as a patch for the recession, and it was supposed to expire, and ideally it should be allowed to expire, but similar to the position that Kyle took, I also feel like we need to do whatever we must do to ensure that our priorities are funded, and so we may have to see it extended. I don't like that necessarily. I think that we need a fair and responsible income tax structure that works and funds our important priorities. But until and unless we get that, we may have to do some things that we really don't like to do. But the one thing that I will not support is continuing to underfund the schools and making drastic cuts to services for Kansas. We just cannot have that. We need to make sure that we have the revenue to support our priorities.